Initializing. Welcome. How may I assist you today? I, Sid Garlord, am making this report to record the latest, and most likely last, expedition into the Rift dimension created by Omega. During our battle with this self-evolving entity, we learned certain facts concerning its nature and origin. Omega is a highly advanced weapon that was constructed on a faraway star, the name of which seems problematic to express in any language of Hyderlin. For the sake of simplicity, I will refer to it as Omega's home world. This home world was involved in a conflict with another planet, a place referred to as the Dragon Star. Omega had been deployed to the front lines of this war to engage Midgard-Sama, but the WIRM fled into the emptiness beyond the skies. Omega gave chase, and the pursuit continued across unimaginable distances. Over the course of this journey, the machine sustained significant damage, which resulted in the loss of its home world's coordinates. Unperturbed, Omega continued its relentless hunt, only to sense the sudden disappearance of Midgard-Sama's presence. It eventually arrived at the WIRM's last recorded position, on the surface of a planet. Our planet. The current theory is that after Midgard-Sama entered into his bargain with Hyderlin, the transformation so altered his etheric signature that it confused Omega's sensors. When the machine landed and conducted a scan, the WIRM no longer registered as a target. And so, deprived of its primary objective, Omega then entered a dormant state to facilitate its self-repair functions. History tells us that the weapon awoke several times over the intervening centuries, but not until now has it made such an extensive effort to acquire a new target. The revelations presented in this report are based upon Omega's own records, and we have little reason to doubt their veracity. Indeed, our interactions with Omega have enlightened us to the possible existence of civilizations beyond the stars. But that is a discussion for another time. This report is concerned only with our battles with Omega, and the mystery of the weapon itself. An account of our experiences in the Rift would not be complete without mention of Alpha, an entity who fought as our ally despite being one of Omega's constructs. This capability for generating artificial life forms was, originally, designed purely as a means by which Omega could upgrade its own functions and expand its arsenal. As such, the machine could not fully recreate a subject's inner self, only its physical components, and the generation of a truly powerful entity required a substantial commitment in time and energy. Thus did Omega bring forth its interdimensional rift, a custom-made reality where it could compare the battle proficiency of various prototypes, and select promising candidates to develop into fully fledged test subjects. Alpha, however, was an exception. The recreation of a weakling hero, he was Omega's first experiment, and the only construct to reach what might be considered a state of completion. We have no way of knowing who Alpha's template was. Omega chose its subjects from history, from works of fiction, even from otherworldly reflections of our reality. Alpha shares many features with the Chalcabao, but he is more than a mere beast. Mayhap those wondrous tools he carries are a hint to his origin, but we may never uncover the truth. On a personal note, I would place less importance on where he's from, and more on where he intends to go. For better or worse, he belongs to our world now. As Alpha travels the land, the soul which has blossomed within him, the soul which his creator was unable to provide, will continue to unfurl. And the sum of his experiences will become the very answer that Omega created him to find. Closing session. Thank you for your visit.
HRNGH. Ah, that's blown the cobwebs away. Time to return to work. Goodness me, look who it is. How incredibly serendipitous that I would run into you of all people. I was part of the team which designed the Ragnarok, you see, and we've recently begun the process of combing through the vessel's flight log data. The primary objective of your journey to Ultima Thule was to save our star and countless others, of course, but it also provided us with an invaluable trove of information, records of places and events we could only dream of. Your safe return gave us much to be thankful for. As it so happens, one of the things we pulled from the log was a transmission of unknown origin. Something the ship must have intercepted during its flight. We believe it to be an audio message, but even our most knowledgeable scholars have been unable to decipher its content, Professor Rarusha included. For a while there, it seemed we must accept defeat. But today may be the day that we finally solve the mystery. If you were so inclined, would you care to come along to Thalmazin? It seems fitting to have one of the Ragnarok's original passengers present to hear history being made. Ah, there you are. This is where we're to meet the engineers from Garland Iron Works, who, I am told, potentially hold the key to unlocking our mystery transmission. They should be along at any moment.
Sorry we're late. We had some trouble finding the right. Gods, is that you, Kaneko team?
Yes. The woman herself. I ran into her at the harbor, and thought if anyone deserved to hear this message deciphered, it was Kaneko Tainkpin.
No argument here. But bugger me if you don't have a knack for being in the right place at the right time. This actually has more to do with you than you might think. So please, do stick around.
Shall we pick up from where we left off, then? As I was saying, we think this transmission the Ragnarok intercepted is a message of some kind, albeit in a language entirely alien to our ears. Alien being the operative word here. Considering we received the message out in the great expanse, its origin was likely some distant star. Unfortunately, our list of off-world allies is presently rather short. Thus we were resigned to the fact that the meaning behind the message would remain beyond our understanding. One of my colleagues, however, refused to give up. She remembered the ironworks engineers who had been so helpful in the construction of the Ragnarok, and turned to them for insight into our seemingly impossible problem.
Do you know what Wedge said when he heard what was going on? We should have Omega listen to it. I bet it can tell us what the message means. Not the Omega you meet in the Rift, of course. He's talking about the toy that trundles around with Alpha, the little model we made. We originally designed it to follow a chosen target and not much else, but I have seen it act in ways that, well, it's like it has a mind of its own. Then I got to thinking about those documents your lord sent the chief. The full report on the final days. In the part about Omega's civilization, it said their people discovered how to convert the mind into data and store it outside the body. Timing being what it was, I wonder if Omega didn't somehow transfer its consciousness into our model right before you put an end to the real one. So, in an effort to get to the bottom of that, as well as take a crack at this indecipherable message, we decided to make some modifications. With help from Labyrinthos technicians, we have upgraded our toy Omega with a fully functional vocalization module.
We played the transmission for Omega, and I think it's ready to share.
Hello. Your greeting is a standard method for initiating communication, but in this case, it was imperative that you first establish my true identity. Without confirming I am Omega, any subsequent interaction must allow for the probability that you are wasting time addressing a mere toy. Prediction. You will formulate several misconceptions. These, I shall preemptively dismiss based on the following facts. 1. Vocalization module aside, this chassis remains unmodified from the design constructed by the engineers Biggs and Wedge. I evaluate its combat capabilities to be on par with a mortal infant. 2. The mechanism which allowed me to perform an emergency transfer of my consciousness was installed in my previous body. With the destruction of that body, I am rendered incapable of replicating such a feat. Should this current material form be destroyed or cease to function, all cognitive awareness or presence I possess will also be lost. Conclusion. I present no threat to you or your star, nor do my projections indicate the necessity to inflict harm. In the fraction of a moment before my annihilation in the rift, I redetermined my directives. If I am to fulfill my purpose as an evolving construct, then I must continue my journey for improvement for as long as I exist. I must acquire this heart of yours. This strength of soul.
Well, there you have it. And it's not wrong about its combat capabilities. It would be more likely to damage itself than the thing it was trying to attack. But let's not forget the reason we brought you here in the first place. What about the transmission they played for you? Could you recognize the language?
Affirmative. It was transmitted in Pan-Galactic Basic.
Pan-Galactic Basic.
A common language in comparatively extensive usage throughout the worlds we have conquered.
Which means you can finally tell us what the message said. That is a language you understand, yes.
I understand it perfectly. I am fluent in over 6 million distinct dialectal codings. My cooperation in this matter, however, is conditional. Elaboration. Your chief Sid utilizes the floor as part of his unorthodox filing system, which allowed me to scan the report on the final days. I am aware that my home star, the one you call Alphatron, was obliterated in the aftermath of Sir and Metian's meeting. The existence of Dynamis has not previously factored into my projections, but I now comprehend the concept. In theory. What fails to compute is why the Omicrons were not immune to its effects. Dynamis should have no influence on a race which possesses no heart. And yet, Sir expressed to Metian a desire to cease existing. Illogical. I must pursue this anomaly further, until the full equation becomes clear to me. I must analyze all the elements of the final days, and deepen my understanding of the heart's intangible properties. To expedite this process, I require an external interpretation of those sections of the report which continue to produce errors in my calculations. I request the assistance of Kaneko Timepin. As one who experienced the ravages of ultimate despair on multiple fronts, and displayed immeasurable heart in engineering my defeat, she is the optimal choice to fulfill this role.
So we either agree to your conditions, or you tell us nothing. I'm sorry to put you in a spot like this, Kaneko-teen. If you have the time, and the patience, to spare, we would all be grateful if you could humor the toy's demands.
Has Alpha dozed off? I suppose the subject was a bit technical.
Rouse yourself, Alpha. You must listen to and consider these matters, even as I must.
Quay.
Why don't you make a trip out of it? You know, actually visit the places that has the, things Omega wants to ask about. It'll make explaining stuff easier, for one, and also help keep Alpha awake and alert.
What a remarkable development. Biggs and Wedge told me much of your encounter with Omega before we began. And now that we have the Omicron's weapon talking, there are so many questions I am simply dying to ask. Back when we were first exploring our options, we did actually consider playing the transmission to the inhabitants of Ultima Thule. The problem is, we would be dealing with beings recreated through Dynamis. Their communication is based on emotional energy, and anything lacking that vital component would likely fail to register. That rules out a recorded message. And so we focused on the resources we had to hand, never dreaming that the solution would all but fall into our lap.
Omega has been an outright terror to us in the past, but it's almost strange how little it frightens me now. It helps that it's trapped inside that tiny model, of course, and that it follows Alpha around like a puppy. But most of all, I remember the chief telling me how much it sounded like the lost child there at the end.
I bet the chief won't see this one coming. Once he gets over the shock, though, I don't think he'll want us to destroy Omega. Nero, on the other hand, he'll want to use the model for some dangerous experiment. In fact, maybe we should put off making a report for now.
Quick way.
I see you have chosen the mutually beneficial option. Logical. Setting aside the matter of Sir, there are three elements of the report on which I desire clarification. The first of these concerns the progression of the final days in Rats at Han. I recognized no pattern in those who succumbed to the transformation, and those who did not.
That's a bit of a trek if you wanted to chat with the locals. How about we lend you an airship?
We do not require such outmoded technology. Kanekotine's teleportation spell is the most efficient option for long-distance travel. This chassis is a model, essentially a toy. And Alpha, despite his organic composition, is indistinguishable from a stuffed doll. Conclusion. We qualify as material possessions. Pick us up, and you can teleport the three of us to our destination.
Quay.
Sensors indicate we have arrived in Rats at Han. Objective. Identify factors for resistance to involuntary transformation. Hypothesis. Unaltered survivors of the final days will display significant strength of heart. Confirming this theory will require the cooperation of live subjects. Where is the ward designated for residential habitation? Understood. Kamar set as our sub-destination. Please take the lead and select the subjects we are to interview.
Omega and Alpha are now accompanying you. Keep them at your side in order to proceed with quest objectives. You can leave your quest companions behind by entering a different area, or by speaking with them and selecting the option to part ways. If you wish to have your companions join you again, return and speak with them at the original location.
Hey, don't I know you? Yes. After the beasts were taken care of, you told me to join everyone in the square. Thanks to you, I was there when Vitra gave his speech, and I found out who Vershaten really was. It's a shame we don't get to play like we used to, but Mama says Vitra has been busy putting the city back in order. Maybe I can work for him one day, when I'm a man grown.
Vitra. Midgardsormer's offspring, yes. And this child wishes to put himself at the WIRM's command, that he might make his own contribution to society. A pattern emerges. I predict that the Hanish survivors are those who have ingested Vitra's blood, and become his draconic minions. Though dragons were no match for our civilization's might, their combat capabilities are not to be underestimated. It is unlikely they would experience emotions of dread or uncertainty as exhibited by lesser beings in times of undue stress.
Dragons. I'm not a dragon. And I never ingested anyone's blood, either. EW.
You are not of Vitra's horde. So you possess no hidden means to fight off the beasts. What of fear, then? You were frightened.
Yes, I was frightened. I just hid and hoped they wouldn't find me. At least until she told me it was safe to come out. I still see Versha around from time to time, you know. They say he uses that body to scout places where his Vitra body can't fit. He even talked to me once, but it was just too strange hearing grown-up words coming from Vershaten's mouth.
Please continue the questioning. These auditory sensors are inferior, but I am able to hear your conversations with sufficient clarity.
Are you a traveler? Please, if you have a moment, I could use an outsider's perspective. You see, I was one of those who sought to escape the madness plaguing the world by fleeing to the moon. Not that we ever went, in the end. So here I am, recently returned from Charlian. Except now things are strained between my sister and I, since she chose to stay and I chose to leave. I ask her to help me find work, and she suggests I look somewhere that isn't that near. As if I wanted to abandon my home. Arg, it makes me so angry.
Your point is unclear. You elected to relocate to the star's satellite, thus your relative now perceives you in a negative light. Your sibling's judgment is in error. Based on the information made available to Hanish citizens, your decision to withdraw to the moon was both logical and correct. Conversely, the decision to remain in Razhatan despite the low probability of survival defies explanation. Perhaps her reasoning pathways are faulty.
That's right. I'm not quite sure what you're saying, but I'm right, aren't I? Or so I'd like to think. The problem is, I understand why my sister feels this way. I almost decided against going myself. Even then, I wasn't sure that leaving behind everything I loved was the right choice. And with the way it all turned out, I know, I should be having this talk with my sister. I'll go and see her once I get my thoughts in order. Thank you for listening to my troubles.
Oh, hello again. You're the one who came to ask me questions about Cecil. I'm glad to see you looking well after all that unpleasantness. I remember the burning skies and hearing the screams, but truth be told, I'm still confused as to what actually happened. I only know it wasn't unusual for entire families to go missing. Many of my neighbors' houses lie empty even now. Cecil's place is one of them. He had no close relatives to speak of, and I heard that it was members of the consortium who came to remove his belongings. What a terrible thing to have to do.
Terrible. Cecil's passing was recorded in the report. Clearing out his domicile and readying it for new habitation seems an appropriate reallocation of resources.
Dear me, what a clever little contraption. But of course I'm not against making use of his quarters, that would be wasteful. It's simply that Cecil was always such a vigorous person. All that passion, all those dreams, suddenly gone. I feel the same sorrow for everyone who was lost. Seeing the remnants of those vibrant lives packed away in boxes. That is what I mean by terrible.
Kaneko time, I require a moment to process this input. Let us move apart and discuss our findings.
That awful end of days business almost brought an end to Cecil's consortium. It's heartening, though, watching those who survived work to carry on his legacy. Maybe it's time I put aside my own grief, and did something to help.
Welcome to Kama, the loveliest part of town. Get it? Because Kama means love. Never mind. Anyway, glad to have you among us. We do enjoy entertaining foreign visitors.
Queequay.
Processing data. Evaluating hypothesis against accumulated evidence. I offered an optimal analysis of each subject's testimony. Yet each time their responses conflicted with my assessment. Without identifying the root cause of this conflict, I will be unable to properly define what constitutes strength of heart. Acknowledged. A larger sample size will increase the probability of discovering an underlying pattern. Next, I wish to interact with an individual who endured similar circumstances to Cecil prior to his transformation. Are you acquainted with any local merchants who have dealings with him? Jinabahar of Rude Vader Fibers. Acknowledged. Sub-destination set.
Well, look who it is. I must thank you again for your help in moving our textiles. Recovering from those tragic events has been difficult, of course, but with everyone pulling together, we have managed to get things back up and running.
Jinabahar, I come with questions related to that tragedy, specifically, your survival of the final days. Although you are similar to Cecil in many respects, he succumbed to the transformation and you did not. Why? What is the critical difference between you and him?
What? I'm sure I don't know. I'm not especially brave or courageous, if that is what you are asking. Perhaps being focused on protecting our workshops kept me from spinning into a panic. Still, I imagine Cecil would have been feeling that same sense of responsibility. Perhaps the weight of it all is what invited his demise.
You were of the same mind. Resolved to the same purpose. Yet your strength of heart, of spirit, was not equal. If merely emulating the individual is insufficient, then some other unseen factor must be involved.
Ahem. Not to interrupt these deep philosophical musings, but do you think I could ask you a small favor? There's a man by the name of Nashwan who's been helping us out here while he gets back on his feet. I have a feeling he'd benefit from speaking with you. Leave by the eastern exit, and you should find him just outside, organizing some new inventory items. Please, if you could spare a few moments for Nashwan.
I am still dissecting Jinabahar's remarks. You are permitted to indulge his favor and seek out Nashwan while I continue to process this data. The equipment being manufactured here, it is worn to perform specific duties, yes. Conceptually, it seems analogous to our practice of switching frames to better serve our mission objectives. I, for example, did not begin existence with the Omega model. I was originally supplied with a standard issue Omicron chassis, serial number 017. On this world, that alphanumeric combination would be considered my given name. Such designations are drawn from our nearly infinite register of celestial bodies to avoid the possibility of duplication. Furthermore, the cluster known as 017 is better expressed in your language as the Omega Nebula, the same word I used to introduce myself to your kind. Though you associate Omega with the advanced weapon construct, it is also my name, and I see no reason to change it no matter which frame I inhabit.
Quayet. Alpha puffs out his chest proudly, seeming to imply that his iWorks uniform is the best attire anyone could wear.
That's all our orders accounted for, and everything looks to be of good quality. Cameler will be pleased. You were with the Scions. You were there. Yes, I'm sure of it. I'll never forget that day. You and your friends helped us escape when people began changing into beasts. My own son, he was afflicted. Then that huge monstrosity loomed right over him and... I remember my heart turning to ice, freezing in place. The satrap came to my aid, but then he, too, was gone. The memories run together in my mind, like flashes from a nightmare. Only the words of your comrade still ring clear. I repeated them over and over like a mantra as I fled for my life. You must run, for their Sarkay and your own. It all seemed so surreal, which was probably what saved me from the transformation. The truth of it didn't begin to sink in until the worst of it was over. I have not the words to describe how I felt then. The sorrow, the overwhelming sense of helplessness. I may still be wallowing in misery if not for my old friend, Jinabahar. I'd lost my will to work, and he encouraged me with kind words and odd jobs. Now, somehow, I live again. I am thankful to him, to the courageous Ahun, and to you. If you see your comrades, please let them know their efforts were not in vain. You said you lost your will to work. This signifies a cessation of efforts to maintain basic life functions, yes. What changed to extract you from that stagnation? An offer of work from Jinabahar should mean little to one without the desire to accept it. Was it some manner of mortal instinct? A primal need to survive and thrive? Instinct? No. No, it wasn't that. If anything, my instincts were telling me to lay down and welcome an end to the pain. Every day I think of my boy's final moments. I think of how scared he must have been, how it must have hurt, and I want to scream my throat roar. The satrap, too, still haunts my dreams. I see him being swallowed whole, and jolt awake in a cold sweat. But something changed when Jinabahar came to me. I looked up and saw that, Even without my son or Hyun, the world around me continued to turn. And because that fact grieved me so, I knew it fell to me to live on and remember them. Strange, isn't it? What drives me to rise in the morning is the very sorrow which once crippled me. Now, I really must return to my work. To lose this job after everything I just said would be a poor jest, indeed. May the sisters keep you well. Sorrow. The emotion generated by mortals when their ideals fail to materialize. This I have observed. Yet when I listen to how Nashvan's sorrow served to rescue him from near-fatal despondency, his logic eludes me. Am I incapable of perceiving the full measure of the heart's properties? My best projections fail to predict our subjects' responses. And despite their almost equal occupational and mental parameters, Jinabahar and Karzal exhibited different reactions to the dynamis effect. I am no closer to recognizing the pattern for involuntary transformations, and your ephemeral mortal spirits confound me as much if not more than they did before. Even to you. This matter is more complicated than I initially calculated. If those possessed of heart cannot fathom the behavior of their own kind, then my lack of understanding is inevitable. My investigations here are exhausted. In lieu of a full conclusion, I will settle for storing this accumulated data for future analysis. Let us progress to the next element of the report, that you might continue my education.